Welcome, everybody, and welcome, Dr. Margaret. We have with us Dr. Margaret Paul, who is the co-creator of Inner Bonding and author of 12 books. And with that, Dr. Margaret, welcome. I'm so glad you're here sharing with us.
Thank you.
And why don't you tell us what inner bonding is? I'm familiar, but tell everybody in the audience what inner bonding is and why it's important, why it makes a difference for us.
Yeah, inner bonding is a very powerful six-step self-healing process that anybody can learn. It's about learning to love yourself, to take responsibility for your feelings. It's about learning about your false beliefs, learning to access the truth. It's about learning to develop what we call the loving adult, part of us that really can take responsibility for our health and feelings and well-being. And it's about developing a powerful spiritual connection to enable you to access what's true about false beliefs and about what's loving to you, and to help you take loving action on your own behalf. So, inner bonding does a lot as people learn and practice it.
Yeah, and so far you've talked about what it can do for you, and what does it also do between you and other people?
Well, inner bonding is actually essential for creating loving relationships because so many people go into relationships just hoping to get love, to get somebody to make them feel worthy, make them feel safe. Inner bonding develops that capacity to love yourself and fill yourself with love to share. So that when you go into a relationship, you have the love within you to share. You're not in a needy place, hoping for somebody else's approval, hoping for somebody else's attention, hoping for somebody else to define you as having worth. With inner bonding, you learn to define your own worth. You learn to make yourself feel safe. Um, and you learn to fill yourself up with love to share. And that's actually what a loving relationship is. Two people taking responsibility for their feelings, their health, their well-being, and coming to each other to share their love, not to try and get love. And too many people enter relationships from a place of self-abandonment, self-rejection, and they're in a needy place. And they're hoping this person will give them what they didn't get as they were growing up and what they're not giving to themselves now. And that's a codependent relationship. The other person will come with that same agenda because we get attracted at our same level of self-love or self-abandonment. And so it's not realistic to get into a relationship with the hope that somebody else is going to give us what we didn't get as we were growing up and when we're not giving to ourselves now. So it's really essential if we want to have loving relationships to learn to take that responsibility of learning to love yourself, which is not just, like so many articles say, oh, take a bubble bath or get your nails done or things like that. That's not it. It's about like if you have a baby, you listen for the cry of the baby and you take responsibility for making sure that the baby is okay. Um, it's the same thing on the inner level. It's learning to listen on the inner level for our feelings and learning to learn from our feelings rather than avoid them with ignoring them or various addictions or making others responsible for them. Learning to really, truly learn from our feelings and take responsibility for them and heal the false beliefs that are often subconscious or unconscious that are completely limiting us in so many ways. So if you want to have a loving relationship, it needs to start with a loving relationship with yourself. I talk about it as developing your inner family, which is like a flow between your higher guidance, your what we call the loving adult in your heart, and your inner child in your solar plexus, which is your soul, and a flow there on the inner level so that you're in your personal power and you're filled up with love and you have peace and joy in your life. And then you come to the other person to share that.
Mm. So something that my clients talk about a lot is getting very upset with people who disagree with them, which I guess is another way of, well, it's not just seeking love from others, it's seeking validation.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
and
seeking
yeah,
validation, seeking approval.
well, of course, it is approval. And I know something that you've spoken about before is when you're in dialogue with another person, you're always seeking to learn what would be loving, share what would be loving, or control. Can you say a little bit about that? Because I think when we get into debating, and in my case, it's debating about political views, or in my work, people debate about political views. Um, but what is the risk of control? How do we end up controlling when we think we're not? And why do you say the choices are love or control?
Yeah, so really in the inner bonding process, there are just two intentions possible at any given moment. And like you said, one is to try and control, getting love, avoiding pain, getting approval, getting agreement, whatever it is you're wanting to get. And the other is to learn to love yourself and share your love with others. So I mean, at this point, you're talking about something that's very common, which is the political disagreements. And, people want the other person to agree with them, which means they're going to try and explain, they're going to defend, they're going to argue, they're going to debate, they're going to get angry. These are all ways of trying to control, or they're going to just give in and people please, or whatever. There's many forms of control, which is very, very different than being open to learning. And so, I mean, this would be so great in the political arena if people, were disagreeing, let's say, about the candidates, and they were interested in understanding each other's point of view. If they said, there's got to be a very good reason that you are voting for this one or that one. And
Mm.
I'd really like to understand it from your point of view. There's so much to learn when we open to learning with each other, but both people have to be open to learning. And you can't do that with somebody who's intent on trying to control you. And so if you're having, let's say, a political argument with somebody that just wants to win, there's no point in getting into it because that person is closed. And the best thing to do is disengage from the conflict because you're not going to get anywhere. We resolve conflict when both people are open to learning, and we learn a lot through conflict. But if one person is just, bound and determined to win, you're wasting your energy there. It's best to disengage.
Yeah, you said something once that really struck with me. I don't know if you say this often, but basically, if you're communicating with something that they're doing something that doesn't work for you, the first time you tell them, it can be out of trying to create a loving arrangement. And every time you say it after that, it's control because they actually already know.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, maybe you can get away with twice, but especially in an ongoing relationship. If you make a request and somebody doesn't do as you ask, maybe you can request one more time. But a request is very different than a demand. A request, the person they can say no without any kind of punishment. But a demand means that they better do what you want or else there's going to be some kind of punishment. You'll get mad, you'll withdraw, you'll shut down, you'll do something, you'll resist, you'll do something that may be painful for the other person. So we certainly can make requests in relationships, but if the other person doesn't want to do what we ask them to do, then again, we can either open to learning and say, there must be a very good reason that you don't want to do that. I like to understand. Or we can figure out how to get what we need on our own, but we can't make people be who we want them to be. And this is a big issue, is that people don't want to accept what they can control, which is themselves and their own intention, and what they can't control, which is how other people feel or act or events or situations. I mean, you can probably intimidate young kids into doing what you want, although it gets harder and harder today with all the media. And maybe you can intimidate a partner for a certain period of time,
Mm.
but that's not a loving relationship. And the two people are not going to feel close or connected, be able to really share love and have fun and have joy and have good sex. None of that's going to happen if,
It's not sustainable because something bad is going to come back
oh yeah, yeah,
if you intimidate someone into doing what you want.
that's right.
Yeah, backing up but into, accepting, like accepting difficult feelings, listening to difficult feelings, accepting what other people do, you know, there are a lot of tragedies going on in the world, and there are a lot of people, um, committing really extreme harm to others. And a lot of my work is in helping people sort of be with those facts without necessarily submitting to them, but be with the facts and be with the reactions. Um, what what can inner bonding offer when people are just experiencing a lot of pain, um, for something that maybe doesn't impact them directly, but that they're witnessing and that they may have very strong moral feelings about as well?
It's a difficult situation. I'm I'm like a darkness Geiger counter. The minute there's any darkness, my whole body reacts to it, and my body starts to shake. And I mean, and I've been this way my whole life. I've always reacted that way to any darkness, whether it's in a person, whether it's in a movie, whether it's in media, wherever it is. So what's loving to me is to not expose myself. I don't watch the news. I don't go on social media. I don't do any of that because it's not loving to me to put myself under that. I do all I can to help people move into being loving, being kind, being caring, with themselves and each other. But I know that I don't have any control over all the darkness that's in the world or a darkness that's in an individual person. And my body has let me know very clearly that I cannot tolerate it. I cannot, like I couldn't watch the debates. I couldn't do it. Um, and so I listen to my body, and
Mm.
I'll get snippets of things like, getting really happy about who won the first debate, but I'm not going to put myself into the position of hurting hurting myself.
Mm-hmm.
Too
Yeah.
many people do that. They do that. They hurt themselves, thinking, oh, they've got to keep up on the news, or they should watch this or that, or convince this person or that person. I do all I can, but that doesn't mean that I have to do things that are too painful for my body to handle.
Yeah, things you can't do. Things you
Yeah,
can't. Yeah, things you can't do. Yeah. I I do I don't watch the news per se just because I get angry, and I watch information, and there's some things that I won't even mention that, um my friend said, "Oh, I saw a video of that." And I'm like, "I don't want to see the video of that. I will let people know that someone I trust saw a video of it."
right. That's right. That's what I do.
Um because, yeah, there's a too much, right? There's a too much. Um
Yeah.
and when I do end up, you know, experiencing too much, um I go to I go to methods to process my feelings, including inner bonding.
Yeah.
Um,
We have to honor our own level of sensitivity. And it's like with the debates. I belong to a committee that's a diversity committee. I belong to a group called the Transformational Leadership Council that was started by Jack Canfield. It's a wonderful group. And we have meetings a lot. And one of the meetings we have monthly is the diversity committee. And so when the the debates were on, they were all on texting each other. Oh my God, they said this. Oh my God, they said that. I couldn't do it. I can't do it. I can't be exposed to the darkness. And so I said, I'm sorry. I can't watch it. I just can't. It hurts my stomach. It hurts my heart. I just can't watch it. And that's honoring, even though everybody else could. Everybody else could, and I couldn't. And we just have to honor where we are and make that okay.
Yeah.
What we can handle and what we can't handle.
Yeah. And especially when it's not going to make a big difference in our behavior.
Right. That's right.
You know, there's some dark things I've needed to know in order to act. And I didn't need to necessarily go back and find out more.
Right. Yes. Just knowing about them and doing what you can be enough.
Yeah. And so, you know, one of the themes of this this series actually is, you know, how do people step into their purpose? And then the other is like, how can we use these tools to make a big difference on global issues? So how does inner bonding empower people? I guess, yeah, empower people to be effective in these big goals.
You know, inner bonding helps people to define who they are in their soul. Our soul is a spark of the divine, and most people don't know anything about their own soul. And so inner bonding teaches them to learn about and appreciate the beautiful, multifaceted diamond that is their soul. And the more they see and appreciate and define their own soul, the easier it becomes to see and appreciate everybody else's soul. That is what creates a feeling of oneness. When you really know your soul, then you know that each of us is a spark of the divine. And you can't harm another person when you really, really know that. When you learn to love yourself, it becomes so easy to see the soul of others and to see and value them and cherish them. There's no way that people can do harm to themselves, others, animals, the planet, if they really knew and embraced who they are. And inner bonding enables them to do that because it develops that spiritual connection that allows them to truly see the beauty of their own soul and therefore the beauty of each other's soul. And so for me, inner bonding is very basic in terms of becoming a loving human being who just couldn't do harm to anybody, to themselves, to others, to animals and the planet. Like I said, you just can't when you're really connected with who you are and with your higher guidance.
Hmm. Yeah, I I really, yeah, I'm getting that like if you're if you're not protecting and defending your soul from all the things that are not it, then you have a lot more space for others.
That's right. And I mean, it's not that you don't take care of your soul. You do. That's part of loving yourself is to learn how to take loving care of yourself, of your own soul. But it's not protecting in the harsh, dark, violent way that the ego wounded self learns to protect.
Mhm.
It's a completely different way of taking care of ourselves.
And speaking of the ego wounded self, what about like if somebody knows they want to make a big difference, but they're having thoughts like, you know, I'm not worthy, I can't, it's too hard, I'm not the one. Um, how can inner bonding make a difference with that?
So inner bonding, the process, the 6 steps of inner bonding, helps them to tune into those false beliefs that are programmed in from childhood. They're programmed in from when we're very young. I'm not good enough. I'm not adequate. I can't do this. This is actually what we decided when we were very young. It's called core shame, and
Hmm.
it's very attached to control because when we were little, if we weren't getting the love that we needed, we may have said to ourselves, I'm not being loved because I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable enough. I'm not worthy enough. And that gives us a sense of control because then we can try and figure out how to do it right. And if only I do it right, then I can get the love that I need. And the problem is we become addicted to that core shame because it gives us a feeling of control.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I've noticed that I have a lot of performative shame where I'm like, okay, if I act ashamed enough, then people will approve of me.
That's
Um,
right.
and of course, that's been reinforced it,
Yeah.
randomly, in fact. Yeah. Yeah.
But the inner bonding helps people get down to those false beliefs and to understand what they're trying to control by continuing to operate out of that ego wounded self and to learn to go to their guidance for what is the truth and then to act from the truth. You know, it's about being in reality because the wounded self is programmed with just tons of lies, tons of false beliefs. And operating from lies is the definition of insanity. It's not being in reality. And when you practice inner bonding long enough, you start to tap into your higher source of truth, of reality. And that's what sanity is. And I mean, if we look around the world, we see how many people are acting out of their wounded self.
Out of wounds. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
that's
yeah. Uh, yeah. So we're getting close to the end. We've got 5 or so more minutes. Tell everybody about the free gift you're offering.
okay. I offer a lot of free gifts, so you're going to have to
Okay,
tell
let me check which one it is.
me.
I've got your form on another tab. Oh, I
Yeah.
don't have your form on another tab.
Okay.
Why don't you
I-
choose one and we'll just make sure to use that. We've got time.
okay. So here's one: the 6 secrets of profound self-love and joyous connection. That's a ebook that will help people a lot with the inner bonding process.
Great. And anything else you want to say before we
Well, people
finish
can
up?
learn more about inner bonding by going to our
Mhm.
website, innerbonding.com. They can take our free 7-day inner bonding course and get a very good overview of inner bonding. We have many, many courses. We have a fabulous facilitator training program. So if people want to either work with me or if they can't afford it, we have facilitators all over the world. I teach a bi-monthly masterclass where people can have short laser sessions with me. It's a very powerful 90 minutes twice a month. I have a free podcast out every week. There's just many ways. And I have a big YouTube channel where there's so much that people can learn. So there's so many ways that people can learn about inner bonding and benefit from it.
Wonderful. So again, they're looking up inner bonding or Dr. Margaret Paul, and they'll find the website, the podcast, the courses, can join the email list and find out about the master classes and get coached or watch people get coached, which I've done a couple times. Thank you so much. This has been really clear. The answers to the questions are really clear, how we can connect with ourselves to be free to make a difference around us from love and not control.
Well, thank you, Alice.